After my disappointment with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I took a break from the MCU, and before I saw Hawkeye, I did watch Shang Chi, if for nothing else, so I could review it for you guys, as I'm still being asked about my thoughts on the MCU's latest projects. So, what did I think of Shang Chi? Well, first off, I really liked Shang Chi. In the trailers, he came across very stiff and wooden, but in the movie, from his very first scene, I thought he was quite charismatic, and he handled the drama stuff pretty well too, and he even did the fight choreography very well. The movie's action style is very much modeled after Jackie Chan movies, and they are done pretty close. Now granted, they use a lot of green screen, something that Jackie Chan never did, and that does make these feel like more staged and artificial versions, but they are still a lot of fun. The two best fights of the movie are the scenes on the bus and the bamboo scene, the bamboo one being my favourite of the two. I even liked the villain in the movie. He's not particularly memorable, and I had pretty much forgotten about him a day after I had watched the film, but the Mandarin, I liked him the best out of all the characters in this film. It felt like he was from a completely different movie, and he didn't make any silly MCU jokes either, so I was able to take him the most seriously. And that's about it for all the stuff that I liked. I know, I'm sorry guys, but I tried. The first thing that I didn't like was Katie. Now, a lot of you had warned me about her since this movie was released, and you were all right. From the second she showed up on screen, I immediately could not stand her. As soon as you see her exaggerated facial expressions, it just screams, I am the comic relief.
Oh my god. Okay, you know I'm not an idiot. Please, get it. I'll go slow.
Oh gee, I wonder if she's lying and if she's really gonna go Yep. I am sure the actress is very talented, so I want to make it clear that I don't blame her. This is just something that the MCU makes their actors do, more specifically their comic reliefs. She is just another Kat Dennings character from Thor: The Dark World.
That is exactly the daughter my mom wishes came out of her vagina.
Well, now we know how this movie got its PG-13 rating. And what makes her character worse is that she doesn't even do anything. This story is all about Shang Chi and his family, and the movie forcefully has her tag along just because the MCU wanted its comic relief. Aside from that, her only contribution is that she fires a single arrow at the end of the movie. That's it. And anyone could have fired it. She's around countless other far more experienced people than her. And they put Wong in this movie too because he's Asian, I suppose, and he plays absolutely no role in this film. The tiny bit you saw of him in the trailer is exactly what we see of him in the final movie, with just about 30 more seconds of screen time and an embarrassingly goofy mid-credit scene. They also made it out like he was going to fight Shang-Chi, but that never happened. Speaking of which, when Wong shows up at the end of the film and says, Shang-Chi, you need to come with me, and you too, I was like, why? Why does this movie keep trying to shoehorn her into these missions when she's not needed and has nothing to contribute? And the humor completely threw me off in this movie, because I did something that I have learnt not to do with MCU films, and that is that you do not get emotionally invested into a scene, because right around the corner, you can bet that Marvel are going to interrupt and ruin the scene with a completely out of place joke. And boy do they do it here. Shang-Chi was telling a story about his past and his upbringing that I was really getting into. It was a genuinely good scene. I really liked it, and then this happened.
Burn the world down. I would have asked him.
Beef or vegetarian? Roll out of the chicken, so I can only offer you beef or vegetarian.
Vegetarian would be great. So...
Oh, we're out of the vegetarian too. Now we only have beef. 2 beefs.
did you go through with it?
No, you can't do that. We had a whole minute of that dumb joke. You can't just continue the serious conversation now. The scene was cut off. The emotion was ruined. You can't go back to the scene now and expect us to get wrapped up in the emotion of it again as if that interruption never happened. Why did you put that joke in here in the first place? The MCU does this all the time and I am sick of it. Interrupting heavy scenes with an out-of-place joke is practically a staple of the MCU now, and it always ruins what is usually a very good scene. And what even is the joke here? Is it supposed to be funny that they interrupted the movie? You can't just go from 100% serious to 100% goofy and then back to 100% serious again. That is just bad storytelling. Now there was one joke that I liked. Shang changing his name from Shang to Sean was funny.
You changed your name from Shang to Sean?
Yeah, I don't...
I wonder how your father found you.
I was 15 years old, alright?
Now that was kind of funny. That really was. And any other movie would know to stop here. But in typical MCU fashion, they try to milk that joke as much as they can, and then it wasn't funny anymore.
What is your name change logic? You go into hiding and your name is Michael, you go on change it to Michael.
That's That's not what happened.
It's like, hi, my name is Gina. I'm gonna go into hiding. My new name is Gina. Yeah, okay.
Amazing. Even when they do a joke right, they get it wrong. Now, something that no one is talking about is the horrendous CGI and green screen. There is so much green screen in this movie, it is unbelievable. Even simple dialogue scenes are using green screens for some reason. And look at these CGI motorbikes and cars. And the mystical animals look like something out of a PS5 game. And sometimes, they look like they are pulled straight out of No Man's Sky on PS4. The CGI in this movie really is so bad, and it amazes me that this film has a $200 million budget, because in actuality, it looks like the budget was less than half of that. This is what I meant when I said that doesn't Kevin Feige look at the Batman trailer and think, I want to make a movie production like that? Because most of the stuff in the Batman trailer was all done in camera with practical effects. And there was one part in the trailer where a stuntman is in the Batman suit and the police actors are actually chasing him off a real rooftop with actual footage of the stuntman as he falls off a real building. This is not done with CGI. They actually shot all of this for real. And that's one of the things I meant when I said, doesn't Kevin Feige see this and say, I want to do that? Meanwhile, the Batman has a $100 million budget and it looks so much more high quality in terms of its production and cinematography than any of the MCU movies, and it costs only half as much to make as them. Even a more grounded MCU movie like Black Widow with no superpowered people cost $200 million to make for some reason. And the CGI in that was fake looking too. Just look at how these two cars look when they're flipped at the dead of night between Black Widow and the Batman. All CGI and shot in a generic way, whereas in the Batman, all practical and is shot in a very creative way. And yet this movie cost $100 million to make and Black Widow cost $200 million. You see the difference here? Marvel have a serious budgeting problem. They've had this problem for the last few years, but specifically with Phase 4, and Shang-Chi also suffers from this. I saw Shang-Chi on Disney Plus in IMAX 4K on my 4K projector, and watching it in IMAX just exposed the flaws and fakeness of the CGI even more. It was also at this point that I noticed that the movie in general looks very clean, almost like it has a soft filter over it. And how did the bad guy come to the village and bring a whole army with them? I mean, the good guys had only one car and they had to go through a ton of trouble to get here, but they had Trevor who guided them. But the bad guys didn't have Trevor, and yet somehow they got there with no trouble. Or did I miss something? And although I loved the first two hand-to-hand action scenes, the rest of the action, particularly the big final battle, there was no real feeling of tension or danger. It felt very scripted, and I just knew that Shang-Chi was going to win in the end. This has got to be the only MCU film that had absolutely no tension during its final action scene. Well, this and Captain Marvel. And their attempt at defending the gate was so laughable. Everyone starts fighting the army, but they left the gate completely defenseless and the main villain very calmly just walks towards it. These are the worst heroes I have ever seen in my life.
He breached the gate!
And by the way, the whole final act of the movie reminded me of the last few episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 1, where Aang, Sokka and Katara arrive at the Water Tribe, and they enjoy the culture, mingle with the locals, and get some training, and then the bad guys come in, and they all have to fight a big war and defend some mystical thing. Only Avatar did it so much better. Overall, my reaction to this movie is, yeah, whatever, it's a thing that I saw. And aside from a couple of cool hand-to-hand action scenes, I'm never gonna watch this movie again. This film needed to stay small scale as a martial arts film, but by the end, they made it a typical Marvel movie that ticks all the checkboxes of a generic MCU flick. And it just cheapened the whole film for me and made it feel very derivative of things we have seen done better before. Despite its flaws, I was more or less with this movie in its first 45 minutes. Right after they get captured, however, the movie completely dropped off for me and I just wasn't with it anymore. And I was just waiting for it to be over. And the final battle really left me feeling absolutely nothing when the film was over. So yeah, aside from a couple of cool action scenes, this movie didn't really do anything for me, and it gets a below average 4 out of 10. It just ended up feeling like a generic MCU movie, even though it had the potential to be something new and different for both the comic book genre and the MCU. Thanks for watching another video, guys. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed it, and let's see if we can get this video to 1,000 likes. Be sure to donate just $1 to me on Patreon, and you can watch my latest trailer reaction of Moon Knight, as well as plenty of other content that is exclusive to patrons. And be sure to click that subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it so you can stay up to date with my future videos. And I will see all of you very soon. Take care.